The stars blurred outside the small patrol ship as Lieutenant Jack Miller completed another sweep of the border zone. 6 months on this assignment had made the routine almost boring. Jack checked his instruments again and sighed. The Orion Nebula. Sector was quiet today, just like yesterday and the day before. Control, this is Patrol 7. Sector 49 is clear. Moving to final checkpoint before returning to base, Jack said into his comm system. Copy that, Patrol 7. Complete. Your route and come home, replied the bored voice of the controller. Jack stretched in his seat and rolled his shoulders. One more stop and he could head back for a hot meal and maybe a few hours in the recreation area. He guided his ship toward the last checkpoint, a small asteroid field at the edge of human-controlled space. The alert came without warning. His sensors screamed as 3 ships appeared from nowhere. They weren't there, and then suddenly they were. Their stealth technology far beyond anything humans had encountered before. Control! 3 unknown vessels at my position! Jack shouted, hands flying across the control panel. Engaging evasive! A purple beam struck his ship, and everything went dark. When Jack opened his eyes, his head pounded and his mouth felt dry. He was no longer in his ship. Cold metal pressed against his back and dim purple lights glowed overhead. He tried to move, but restraints held his wrists and ankles. The mammal is awake, said a hissing voice. Jack turned his head to see a tall, lizard-like creature standing nearby. Its scales were dark green with black markings, and its yellow eyes watched him with no emotion. Jack had seen images of them before in briefings. Draxians, one of the most aggressive species in the known galaxy. Can you understand me, human? The Draxian asked, its mouth moving strangely around the words. Yes, Jack said, keeping his voice steady despite his fear. I'm Lieutenant Jack Miller of the Earth Defense Fleet. My capture is an act of war against... The Draxian made a sound that might have been laughter. Your designation and rank mean nothing here. You are now simply Specimen H-742. 2 more Draxians entered the room. They released Jack's restraints and pulled him to his feet. His legs felt weak, but he forced himself to stand straight. They pushed him forward out of the small room and into a long corridor. The ship, Jack assumed he was on a ship, was much larger than he had expected. They walked through corridor after corridor, passing other Draxians who barely looked at them. The air smelled strange, like burnt plastic and something sweet. Finally, they reached a large circular room with dozens of transparent cells arranged in a ring. Each cell contained different creatures. Some Jack recognized from official contacts, others he had never seen before. The Draxians pushed him forward to one of the cells. Commander Vex will decide your final placement, one of the Draxians said. For now, you wait. They shoved Jack into an empty cell. The transparent door sealed behind him with a soft hiss. Jack immediately examined his surroundings. The cell was about 15 feet square, with a small raised platform that probably served as a bed, a depression in the floor in one corner that looked like it might be for waste, and nothing else. In the cells nearby, Jack could see other prisoners watching him with varying degrees of interest. A green-skinned being with 4 arms gave him what might have been a sympathetic look. A floating cloud of gas with tiny eyes ignored him completely. Hours passed. Jack paced his cell, trying to keep his muscles loose and ready. He needed to stay alert, to look for any opportunity. The Draxians brought him a bowl of something that looked like gray porridge. It tasted like cardboard, but Jack ate it all. He needed to keep up his strength. A commotion at the entrance to the room caught Jack's attention. A large Draxian with elaborate red markings on its scales entered, followed by several others. The marked one had to be someone important. The others showed clear deference. That's the human? The marked Draxian asked, stopping in front of Jack's cell. Yes, Commander Vex. Captured at the border of their territory. Commander Vex studied Jack with cold yellow eyes. Unimpressive. I expected more from a species that has caused so much trouble. Jack met the commander's gaze but remained silent. He had been trained for capture situations. Don't antagonize, observe everything, wait for an opportunity. Have the new specimens been processed? Vex asked one of the others. Yes, Commander. The Pyrovians are in holding cell 8. At this, Commander Vex's mouth stretched into what Jack assumed was a smile. Excellent. I have an idea for some entertainment. The way the commander said entertainment made Jack's stomach tighten. Bring the human. I want to see this myself, Vex ordered. The guards opened Jack's cell and grabbed him by the arms. They followed Commander Vex through more corridors until they reached another section of the ship. Here the cells were larger and more heavily reinforced. They stopped in front of a cell that glowed with internal light. Jack's eyes widened at what he saw inside. Two enormous creatures paced inside the cell. They looked like the dragons from Earth's myths. Scaled bodies, powerful wings folded against their sides, long necks and heads with sharp horns. One had scales that shimmered red like embers in a fire. The other was blue, with scales that seemed to radiate cold. Pyrovians, Commander Vex said, noticing Jack's surprise. Rare specimens, very valuable, very dangerous. The red dragon noticed them and let out a roar that shook the air. The blue one turned cold eyes toward them, assessing. Open the cell, Commander Vex ordered. One of the guards looked uncertain. Commander, the containment protocols. Override them, Vex snapped. I want to see what happens when we put them together. The guards pushed Jack toward the cell door. One of them hissed in his ear. Your species likes to call itself brave. Let's see how brave you are now, mammal. The door slid open, and Jack was shoved inside. He stumbled, catching himself before he fell. The door closed behind him with a final sounding thud. The two dragons turned to look at him. The red one exhaled, and the air around its mouth shimmered with heat. The blue one's nostrils flared, releasing small crystals of ice that floated to the floor. What is this? The red dragon spoke, its voice deep and rumbling. They give us a snack? Hardly worth sharing, the blue one replied, its voice like ice cracking. Barely a mouthful. Jack stood very still, his mind racing. The dragons could speak. They were intelligent. Maybe that was something he could use. Behind him, Commander Vex watched through the transparent wall. This should be entertaining, the Draxian said. The Pyrovians have been refusing to perform for us. Perhaps hunger will motivate them. Jack looked around the cell. It was larger than his previous one, but still a prison. The floor was marked with scorch marks and what looked like frost damage. There was nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. The red dragon took a step toward him, lowering its massive head to Jack's level. Its eyes were like pools of lava, and its breath was hot against Jack's face. What are you called, little thing? The dragon asked. Jack took a deep breath. Fear wouldn't help him now. My name is Jack Miller, he said, keeping his voice steady. Lieutenant, Earth Defense Fleet. The blue dragon made a sound like icicles breaking. It has titles. How quaint. Commander Vex and the other Draxians watched, waiting for the dragons to attack. Jack knew he needed to survive not just for himself, but to get back to his people, to warn them about this threat. The red dragon opened its mouth, revealing teeth like daggers. Jack didn't run. He didn't cower. Instead, he looked directly into the dragon's eyes and waited. The game was just beginning. Jack didn't move a muscle as the red dragon's hot breath washed over him. He had faced death before in space battles and ground missions. Fear was an old friend. If you're going to eat me, Jack said calmly, you should know I'd barely make a snack. Not worth the effort. The red dragon pulled back slightly, surprise visible in its fiery eyes. It speaks with courage, Frostbite, it said to the blue dragon. Most creatures wet themselves by now. A trick, Ember, the blue dragon called Frostbite replied. It hopes to save itself with words. Jack took a slow step backward, maintaining eye contact with Ember. I'm not trying to trick anyone, just stating facts. I'm more useful alive than as a meal. Outside the cell, Commander Vex made an annoyed clicking sound. Why isn't it running? Why aren't they attacking? The Draxian tapped on the transparent wall. Perhaps they need encouragement. A low hum filled the cell, and Jack felt his skin prickle. Some kind of energy field, he guessed. Ember roared in obvious pain, while Frostbite hissed and slashed at the air with razor-sharp claws. Entertainment, Jack muttered, understanding dawning. We're their entertainment. The energy field stopped. Ember snarled and sent a jet of flame toward the transparent wall. It dissipated harmlessly against some kind of barrier. Frostbite did the same with a blast of freezing air that crystallized into ice upon impact, then shattered away. Jack filed this information away. The cell could withstand extreme temperatures. Good to know. The Draxians waited a few more minutes, but when nothing else happened, Commander Vex made a gesture of disgust and left with most of the guards. 2 remained behind, watching. Jack slowly moved to the far corner of the cell and sat down, his back against the wall. The dragons eyed him but made no move to approach. They spoke to each other in a language of growls and hisses that Jack couldn't understand. Time passed slowly. Jack began his routine, a series of stretches followed by push-ups and sit-ups. Physical fitness had kept him sane during other difficult missions. It would do the same now. The dragons watched him with curiosity. "What is it doing?" Ember asked. Frostbite loudly enough for Jack to hear. "Some kind of ritual, perhaps," Frostbite replied. "Mammals are strange." Jack finished his exercises and wiped sweat from his forehead. "It's called staying in shape," he told them. "Helps me think, keeps me ready." "Ready for what, little mammal?" Ember asked, tilting its massive head. "There is no escape from this place. There's always a way out," Jack said. First rule of survival training. Frostbite made a sound like ice cracking. Laughter, Jack realized. "Your optimism is amusing, human. The Draxians have held us for 60 rotations. If we cannot break free, what chance have you?" Jack shrugged. "I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out." The conversation ended when a section of the wall slid open and 3 bowls slid into the cell. 2 large ones filled with what looked like raw meat, and 1 small, one with the same gray porridge Jack had been given before. Ember and Frostbite each took a bowl. Jack approached cautiously and picked up his. "They expect us to fight over food," Jack said, sitting down with his bowl. "Create more entertainment." "Wise observation," Frostbite said. "Tomorrow they will likely give us less." Jack ate slowly, watching the dragons tear into their meat. They were magnificent creatures despite the situation. Their scales caught the light in ways that made them seem to glow from within. That night, if it could be called night when the lights merely dimmed, Jack slept fitfully, always aware of the 2 enormous creatures sharing his space. He positioned himself in a corner where he could see both dragons and the cell door. The next day, just as Frostbite had predicted, the food that arrived was less than before. Jack's portion was halved, and there was only 1 large bowl for the dragons. Ember growled at Frostbite. "I am the larger. I require more sustenance." "Your size makes you inefficient," Frostbite countered. "I have gone without food longer than you." Jack watched them argue, their bodies tensing. This was exactly what the Draxians wanted. Conflict, violence, blood. Entertainment. "Split it," Jack suggested. "Equally." Both dragons turned to look at him. "What did you say, human?" Ember asked, smoke curling from its nostrils. "Split the food equally," Jack repeated. "Don't give them what they want." Frostbite's blue eyes narrowed. "And why should we listen to you?" "Because every time you do what they expect, they win," Jack said simply. "And I don't like losing." The dragons looked at each other, then at the single bowl of meat. After a moment, Ember used a claw to divide the meat into 2 roughly equal portions. They ate without further argument. Jack examined his own portion carefully before eating. The gray mush was bland but nutritious. He noticed something else. Small, black specks in the porridge that hadn't been there before. "They're drugging the food," he said quietly. "Yes," Frostbite confirmed. "It dulls our fire and ice, makes us weak." Jack considered this, then scraped off the top layer of his food where most of the black specks were concentrated. He ate the rest, knowing he needed strength. Over the next few days, a routine developed. The guards would watch, expecting violence. Instead, they saw Jack continuing his exercise regimen, sometimes talking with the dragons, sometimes sitting quietly in meditation. "What are you doing now?" Ember asked on the 4th day, watching Jack sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. "Clearing my mind," Jack said without opening his eyes. "Focusing, planning." "Planning what?" Frostbite asked, moving closer. Jack opened his eyes. Our escape. Both dragons made their respective laughing sounds. Impossible, Ember said. Nothing's impossible, Jack replied. Just difficult. He stood up and walked to the transparent wall, studying it carefully. Every prison has weaknesses. Every system has flaws. And what flaw do you see, human? Frostbite asked, genuine curiosity in its voice. Jack pressed his hand against the transparent material. They're creatures of habit. The guards change at regular intervals. Food comes at the same time. They expect us to behave in predictable ways. And this helps us how? Ember asked. When people expect something to happen a certain way, Jack explained, they stop looking closely. They miss things. That night, as the lights dimmed, Jack lay awake, watching the guards outside. One was clearly bored, the other half asleep. Jack began to notice small details, the pattern of their patrols, the way they checked the cell locks, how long each guard spent looking at each cell. On the 5th day, something new happened. The cell door opened, and 4 Draxian guards entered, carrying what looked like metal poles with energy crackling at the tips. Stand against the wall, specimens, one ordered. Medical examination. Jack complied, watching as 2 Draxians approached Ember with a large needle. The red dragon growled but did not resist as they extracted a sample of blood from its neck. When they approached Jack, he didn't resist either. But he watched everything. How they operated the needle, how they stored the sample, how they moved in the protective suits they wore. What are they doing? Jack asked Frostbite after the Draxians left. Testing, always testing, the blue dragon replied wearily. They seek to understand our fire and ice, to weaponize it. Jack nodded slowly. They want weapons, of course. He looked at both dragons thoughtfully. But they don't understand what they're dealing with, do they? What do you mean? Ember asked. They think you're just animals. Powerful, yes, but still just animals, Jack said. They don't see you as equals, as people. Frostbite's eyes glittered. And you do? Jack smiled for the first time since his capture. I do. And that might just be their biggest mistake. The next morning, Jack woke to the sound of labored breathing. Ember lay on the floor, red scales dulled and eyes half closed. A thin trail of smoke leaked from the dragon's nostrils, but there was no flame. What's wrong with Ember? Jack asked. Frostbite, who stood watching with concern. The air, Frostbite said. They have changed it. Less oxygen, I think. It affects Ember's fire more than my ice. Jack had noticed the change too, a slight tightness in his chest when he breathed deeply. He walked over to Ember and knelt beside the massive head. Can you hear me? He asked. Ember's eye, the size of Jack's fist, focused on him. Yes, little human, the dragon said weakly. I hear you. Jack placed his hand on Ember's neck, feeling the heat radiating from the scales. Your body temperature is too high, he said. You're fighting too hard for breath. Outside the cell, 2 Draxian guards watched with interest. One made notes on a small device. They're testing how we react to different conditions, Jack said quietly. I've seen this before. Standard procedure when studying new species. Frostbite moved closer. Can you help Ember? Jack thought for a moment. Maybe. I need water and something to fan air. Frostbite looked puzzled but used a claw to push the water bowl toward Jack. Jack tore a strip from the bottom of his uniform jacket and soaked it in the water. Lift your head a bit, he told Ember. When the dragon complied, Jack placed the wet cloth against Ember's neck, where he had felt the heat was strongest. This should help cool you down while your body adjusts. Using another piece of his jacket, Jack began fanning air toward Ember's nostrils. Breathe slow and deep, he instructed. Like this. He demonstrated with his own breathing. Frostbite watched with interest. You have medical training? Basic field medicine, Jack explained. Every soldier learns how to keep themselves and their comrades alive until real help arrives. You are a warrior, then? Frostbite asked. Jack nodded. A soldier, yes. 6 years. In the Earth Defense Fleet. 2 as a patrol lieutenant. Ember's breathing gradually became less labored as Jack continued his makeshift treatment. After about an hour, the red dragon lifted its head. "Thank you, Jack Miller," Ember said, using Jack's full name for the first time. "Your help was unexpected," Jack shrugged. "We're all prisoners here. We should help each other." The Draxian who had been taking notes spoke to the other guard. Both looked displeased. A few minutes later, the air vents hummed and Jack could feel the atmosphere in the cell changing again. Ember's breathing eased further. "They didn't get the reaction they wanted," Jack said with a small smile. "So they're trying something else." That night, as the lights dimmed, Jack sat with his back against the wall, watching the guards change shifts. The dragons lay nearby, their massive bodies curled in opposite corners of the cell. "Tell us about Earth," Frostbite said suddenly. "What kind of world produces creatures like you?" Jack was surprised by the question but answered. "Earth is varied. We have oceans and deserts, forests and mountains. Much of it is water. The temperature ranges from freezing to boiling depending on location." "And your people? Are they all warriors?" Ember asked. Jack shook his head. "No, most are not. Some build things, some grow food, some study science or art. Many different jobs." "Yet you speak of warfare easily," Frostbite observed. "Your species fights?" "We've had wars, yes," Jack admitted. "Too many, but we've learned from them. Now we mostly fight to defend ourselves, not to conquer." "Like now? Against the Draxians?" Ember asked. "If necessary," Jack said. "We try diplomacy first, but we're always ready for the alternative." The dragons exchanged looks that Jack couldn't interpret. "What about your world?" Jack asked. "What is it like?" "Pyrovian," Frostbite said, "is a world of extremes, great mountains that breathe fire, valleys filled with ice that never melts. We thrive in these places where other creatures cannot survive." "Our kind is connected," Ember added, "through thought, through fire and ice. But here—" The dragon's voice trailed off. "You're cut off," Jack realized, "from your people. That's why you're weakening. It's not just the air or the food." "Yes," Frostbite confirmed. "We need the connection. Without it, we slowly fade." Jack processed this information. It might explain why the dragons hadn't escaped. Yet despite their obvious power, the next day brought a new challenge. The cell door opened and the Draxians pushed in another prisoner, a small, six-limbed creature with green fur and large eyes. It chittered in fear, pressing itself against the far wall. "New entertainment," Frostbite observed coldly. "They expect us to fight over territory now." Commander Vex appeared outside the cell. "A simple test," the Draxian announced. "The Xavian carries a device. The one who retrieves it will receive double rations for 3 days." The small Xavian looked terrified, all 6 limbs trembling. Ember's stomach growled audibly. The red dragon had been weakening visibly over the past days, the scales losing their luster, the movements becoming slower. Food would help you regain strength, Jack said quietly to Ember. "Yes," the dragon agreed, eyes fixed on the small green creature. Jack stood up and slowly approached the Xavian. "I won't hurt you," he said, keeping his voice gentle. "Do you understand me?" The Xavian chittered again but didn't run. Outside, Commander Vex watched with interest. "The human tries kindness," the Draxian observed to a subordinate. "Disappointing." Jack crouched near the Xavian. "They want us to hurt you to fight over whatever device you have." He pointed to the dragons. "They need food more than I do. If you give me the device willingly, no one has to get hurt." The Xavian's large eyes blinked rapidly. Then slowly it extended one limb. A small metallic object rested in what passed for a hand. Jack took it and nodded his thanks. He turned to Commander Vex. "Here's your device. The dragons get the food." "Unacceptable," Vex hissed. "You must take it by force." Jack looked at the commander steadily. "You said the one who retrieves it gets the food. You didn't specify how." "I retrieved it. The dragons get the food." Vex's scales darkened with what Jack guessed was anger. Fine, but the Xavian stays. After the commander left, 2 bowls of food were delivered, twice the normal size. Jack pushed them toward the dragons. You need it more than I do, he told them. And I think we're going to need your strength soon. Ember and Frostbite ate gratefully. The Xavian remained huddled in the corner, watching them all warily. That night, while the others slept, Jack examined the small device he had taken from the Xavian. It appeared to be some kind of key or data storage unit. He couldn't tell what it was for, but he knew it must be important if Commander Vex had created a test around it. What is it? Frostbite asked quietly, apparently not asleep after all. I'm not sure, Jack admitted, but I think it might be useful. The blue dragon moved closer, ice-blue eyes focused on the small object. It has Draxian markings, there on the side. Jack turned the device, seeing the small symbols etched into the metal. Can you read them? No, Frostbite said. But I have seen similar markings on the door controls. Jack looked up sharply. Door controls? Yes. When the guards open the cells, they use devices like that. Jack's mind raced with possibilities. So this could be a key, or part of one. For the first time, Frostbite's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. Perhaps our escape is not so impossible after all, Jack. Miller? Jack closed his fist around the device. No, he agreed, not impossible at all. Jack spent the next 3 days watching the guards closely. He noted their routines, the way they used their devices, and the timing of each shift change. The small Xavian, which Jack had named Green for its fur color, stayed close to him, seeming to trust the human more than the dragons. One morning after the guards delivered their food, Jack gathered Ember, Frostbite, and Green in the corner of the cell furthest from the transparent wall. I have a plan, he said quietly. But I need your help. All of you. Ember, who looked stronger after several days of better food, lowered its massive head to Jack's level. What kind of plan, human? An escape plan, Jack said simply. But it's dangerous. If we fail, they'll probably separate us, or worse. Frostbite's ice-blue eyes narrowed. Tell us. Jack pointed to the small device he had hidden in a crack in the wall. This is part of a key card system. I've seen the guards use similar ones, but it's not complete. It needs to be activated by another component. And how do we get this component? Frostbite asked. Jack looked at Green. That's where our small friend comes in. He gently touched one of Green's furry limbs. Can you fit through the food slot when they open it? Green chittered nervously but nodded. The food delivery comes in exactly 6 hours, Jack continued. When it does, Green will slip out and find the main control panel. The Xavian's small size and agility should help it avoid detection. Ember snorted a small puff of smoke. And what do Frostbite and I do in this plan? Create a distraction, Jack said. Something big enough to draw all the guards' attention. A fight, perhaps. Frostbite looked skeptical. We have avoided fighting each other all this time. The guards will be suspicious if we suddenly start. Not with each other, Jack clarified. With me. Both dragons stared at him. You want us to attack you? Ember asked, clearly confused. Make it look real, Jack said. But pull your punches. I need to appear injured, not dead. The dragons exchanged looks. This plan asks much of us, Frostbite said. And what of the other prisoners? Do we leave them? Jack had thought about this. Once we have control of the systems, we can free everyone. More chaos means better chances for us all. They spent the next hours working out details. Jack taught Green which buttons to press on the control panel, based on what he had observed. He showed the Xavian how to use the device they had. When the time came, they were ready. The food slot opened and a Draxian guard pushed in their daily rations. As planned, Ember suddenly roared and charged at Jack, who dodged but not quite quickly enough. The dragon's tail caught him and sent him flying across the cell. The guards immediately took notice. One called for others to come watch. Jack scrambled to his feet as Frostbite joined the attack, sending a blast of freezing air that Jack barely avoided. It looked convincing. Jack made sure of that, adding his own shouts and grunts of pain. While all eyes were on the dramatic fight, Green slipped through the food slot and disappeared from view. "You've been planning this," Jack shouted for the benefit of the watching guards. "Waiting until I trusted you." Ember played along perfectly, releasing a jet of flame that singed the wall near Jack's head. "Weak human! Did you think we considered you an equal?" More guards gathered to watch the spectacle. Commander Vex soon joined them, yellow eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Finally," the Draxian commander hissed. "The entertainment I was promised." Jack took a hit from frostbite that sent him sliding across the floor. The cold burned his skin, but the dragon had carefully controlled the blast to avoid serious injury. Still, it hurt badly enough that Jack didn't have to fake his grimace of pain. Minutes passed. Jack began to worry. Where was Green? Had the small Xavian been caught? Or worse? Just as Ember was preparing another attack, the lights throughout the prison section flickered. A moment later, an alarm began to blare. "Now!" Jack shouted. Ember and Frostbite immediately turned their attacks toward the transparent wall. Flame and ice hit simultaneously, creating a thermal shock that cracked the supposedly unbreakable material. Commander Vex barked orders to the guards, who scrambled to respond to the sudden crisis. The cracked wall held for a moment, then shattered as Ember slammed into it with full force. Jack rushed through the opening, followed by the dragons. In the corridor, chaos reigned. Other cell doors were opening, releasing prisoners of various species. Green had done it. The small Xavian had managed to activate the emergency release protocol. "This way," Jack called to the dragons, heading toward what he believed was the hangar bay. His sense of direction, honed by years of navigation training, guided him through the unfamiliar corridors. They encountered resistance, Draxian guards who tried to stop them. But the combined might of 2 angry dragons and a determined human proved unstoppable. Ember's fire kept the guards at bay, while Frostbite's ice created barriers to slow pursuit. "The hangar should be through here," Jack said as they reached a large set of doors. The doors, however, were sealed shut. A control panel on the wall showed red lights. "Lockdown mode." "Stand back," Ember growled, preparing to blast the doors. "Wait," Jack said. He examined the panel carefully. "This needs a command code." From behind them came the sound of running feet, more guards approaching. "We don't have time for codes," Frostbite said urgently. Jack made a quick decision. "Ember, melt the panel. Complete circuit overload." The red dragon sent a focused jet of flame at the control panel, which sparked and smoked. The doors remained shut. "Now, Frostbite," Jack directed. "Freeze it completely." The blue dragon complied, encasing the damaged panel in ice. The rapid temperature change caused the internal components to shatter. With a grinding sound, the doors began to slide open, the emergency failsafe kicking in. Beyond the doors lay the hangar bay. Several small ships were docked, along with larger transport vessels. Jack's eyes immediately went to a sleek craft near the exit. "That one," he said, pointing. "Attack ship, fast engines, light weapons." They rushed toward the ship as alarms continued to blare. Other escaped prisoners had found their way to the hangar as well, creating more confusion as they sought their own means of escape. Jack reached the ship first and placed his hand on the entry panel. To his surprise, it opened immediately. "They haven't locked down the individual ships yet," he said as he climbed inside. "Our luck is holding." The dragons followed, barely fitting through the entrance. The ship's interior was cramped with them inside, but Jack didn't care. He slid into the pilot's seat and began activating systems. "Do you know how to fly this?" Frostbite asked. "It's not that different from our own attack craft," Jack said, his hands moving swiftly over the controls. "Basic principles are universal." Through the view screen, Jack could see Draxian guards entering the hangar, weapons drawn. Commander Vex was among them, shouting orders. "Hang on," Jack said as he fired up the engines. "This might get rough." The ship lifted off the hangar floor just as the first energy blast hit its hull. Jack punched the thrusters and the ship shot toward the hangar exit. "We're not free yet," Frostbite warned as the hangar force field loomed ahead. Jack grinned. "Watch this." He diverted power to the forward deflectors and aimed straight for the field. When two energy fields collide, the stronger one wins. The ship hit the force field at full speed. For a heart-stopping moment, everything seemed to pause. Then the field shattered, and they burst through into open space. Behind them, the Draxian prison ship rapidly grew smaller. Ahead lay the stars and freedom. Freedom lasted exactly 6 minutes and 23 seconds. That's when the first Draxian pursuit ship appeared on the scanner. 2 minutes later, 3 more joined it. "They're faster than us," Jack said, eyes fixed on the controls. "This ship isn't designed for long-range escape." Ember, crammed uncomfortably behind the pilot's seat, growled. "So we fight." Jack shook his head. 4 against 1, bad odds. He studied the star map on the display. "We need somewhere to hide, or help." Green chittered from a corner of the cockpit, pointing at the scanner with one small limb. "What is it?" Frostbite asked. Jack looked where the Xavian indicated. "That's a neutral trading station. Galleon outpost." His eyes lit up. That could work. He changed course, pushing the engines to their limit. The stolen Draxian ship shuddered under the strain. "The outpost has strict rules about violence," Jackie explained as he flew. "All species welcome, no questions asked, but no fighting allowed. Heavy security to enforce it." "And you think the Draxians will obey these rules?" Frostbite asked skeptically. "They might not," Jack admitted. "But the station security won't let them dock with weapons hot. And if they do break the rules, every other species there will turn against them." As they approached the outpost, a massive wheel-shaped structure floating in space, Jack opened a communication channel. "Galleon outpost, this is..." He paused, realizing he couldn't give his real identity in a stolen Draxian ship. "This is Captain Spark requesting emergency docking. We have wounded aboard and are being pursued." A gruff voice responded, "Identify." "Your ship, Captain Spark," Jack thought quickly. "Salvage vessel, found this drifting. Had to use it when our main ship was damaged." There was a pause. Jack could almost feel the outpost security officer's suspicion. "Scan shows Draxian military configuration," the voice finally said. "This creates complications." "We're being pursued by Draxians," Jack replied urgently. "They'll be here in minutes. We claim sanctuary under Article 7 of the Neutral Space Treaty." Another pause, longer this time. Jack held his breath. "Sanctuary granted. Proceed to docking bay 12. Security will meet you." Jack released the breath he'd been holding and guided the ship toward the indicated bay. Behind them, the Draxian pursuit ships had closed half the distance. "What happens now?" Ember asked as they approached the docking bay. "We get inside before they catch us," Jack said. "Then we use the outpost's own rules to keep us safe while we find a better ship." The docking procedure seemed to take forever. Jack watched anxiously as the Draxian ships grew larger on the scanner. Finally, with a gentle thud, they connected to the outpost. "Let me do the talking," Jack told the others as the airlock cycled open. They stepped out into the docking bay to find 6 security officers waiting, weapons drawn. They were a mixed group, 2 humans, an insectoid species Jack didn't recognize, and 3 large reptilians that reminded him somewhat of the Draxians but with blue-gray scales instead of green. "Hands up," ordered one of the humans. Then he saw the dragons and his eyes widened. "What in the stars?" "We claim sanctuary," Jack said firmly, raising his hands. "Under Article 7. Pyrovians," whispered one of the reptilian security officers. "I thought they were just stories." "Very real," Frostbite said calmly, "and very grateful for your protection." The security team escorted them quickly through service corridors to avoid causing a panic among the outpost's regular visitors. They ended up in a large holding room with comfortable seating and food dispensers. "Station Administrator Cordova will see you shortly," the human security officer told them. "Don't leave this room." As soon as they were alone, Jack went to the room's computer terminal and began searching for information. "What are you looking for?" Ember asked. "News about the war," Jack said, "and any mention of Pyrovians. I need to know what we're dealing with." What he found disturbed him. The conflict between humans and Draxians had escalated in the months he'd been captive. Several border colonies had been attacked, and there were rumors, just rumors, that the Draxians had found a new weapon, something that could turn the tide. Dragons, Jack murmured. They were going to use you somehow. Frostbite looked over his shoulder at the screen. They wanted our fire and ice, our connection to our world. Before they could discuss it further, the door slid open. A tall woman with dark hair streaked with gray entered. She wore a simple but elegant uniform with the outpost insignia. "I'm Administrator Cordova," she said. "And you've caused quite a situation, Captain." "Spark, was it?" Jack stood up straight. "My real name is Lieutenant Jack Miller, Earth Defense, Fleet. I was captured by Draxians 3 weeks ago and held prisoner along with my friends here." Cordova's eyes moved to the dragons and widened slightly, but her voice remained calm. "The Draxians are demanding your return. All of you. They claim you're escaped prisoners who stole military property." "That much is true," Jack admitted, "but they took me in violation of treaty boundaries, and they were experimenting on the Pyrovians." "Pyrovians," Cordova repeated. "I thought they were mythical." "Not mythical," Ember said. "Just private. Our kind does not seek attention." A loud commotion outside the room interrupted them. Angry voices could be heard, one of them distinctly Draxian. "That would be Commander Vex," Jack said grimly. "He won't give up easily." Cordova frowned. "Wait here." She left the room, the door sliding shut behind her. Jack turned to the dragons. "If they force us back to the Draxians—" "They won't," Frostbite interrupted. "I've sent a call." "A call? To whom?" Ember made a rumbling sound deep in its throat. "To our people. The connection is weak, but it exists here. I felt it as soon as we docked." Jack felt a surge of hope. "Your people are coming?" "If they heard." "Yes," Frostbite said. "The question is whether they will arrive in time." They didn't have to wait long for an answer. Barely 20 minutes later, the entire station shuddered. Alarms began to sound, and the lighting shifted to emergency mode. The door slid open, and Administrator Cordova rushed in, her calm demeanor replaced by barely controlled panic. "There's a ship," she said breathlessly. "Like nothing I've ever seen. It just appeared out of nowhere, the size of it." She shook her head in disbelief. Jack looked at the dragons. "Your people?" Ember's scales brightened to a deep crimson. "Yes, the Pyrovian High Council. They have come." The next hour passed in a blur. The Draxians, faced with a vessel that dwarfed even their largest warships, quickly withdrew their demands and departed the station. Jack, along with Ember, Frostbite, and the ever-present Green, were escorted to a meeting room where 3 Pyrovian elders waited. They were magnificent, larger than Ember and Frostbite, with scales that shimmered with patterns Jack couldn't quite follow. One was deep purple, one gold, and one a green so dark it was almost black. "You have our thanks, human," said the gold dragon after Ember and Frostbite had related their story. Few would have shown such courage or resourcefulness. Jack bowed slightly. "They were my friends. We helped each other." "Indeed," said the purple dragon. "And now we face a problem. The Draxians sought to use our kind as weapons against yours. This cannot be permitted." "My people need to know about this," Jack said. "About the Draxian plans, and about you." The green dragon's eyes, ancient and wise, studied Jack carefully. "For millennia, we have kept ourselves apart from the younger races. Perhaps that time has ended." 3 days later, Jack stood on the bridge of an Earth Defense Fleet cruiser that had been dispatched to Galleon Outpost. Beside him stood Admiral Carter, looking both impressed and intimidated by the massive Pyrovian vessel visible through the view screen. "So let me get this straight, Lieutenant," the Admiral said. "You escaped a Draxian prison by befriending dragons, stole an enemy ship, and accidentally initiated first contact with a species that could change the balance of power in the galaxy?" Jack smiled slightly. "Yes, sir. That about covers it." The Admiral shook his head. "And to think they locked you in with those dragons to get rid of you. Instead, you terrified them both. The Draxians with your escape, and the dragons with your— what did the gold one call it? "Our controlled recklessness," Jack quoted. our ability to accept impossible odds and still function. As Jack watched the Pyrovian ship, he thought about Ember and Frostbite. They were back with their people now, but they had promised to return as ambassadors. A new alliance was forming, born in a prison cell where enemies had become friends. The Draxians had made a terrible mistake. They had locked a human in with dragons, thinking nature would take its course. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous, understanding between two powerful species, and understanding, Jack knew, was the most terrifying weapon of all.